Let's run through my first Broncos mock draft of the offseason right on the eve of the NFL Combine. Welcome into the Broncos breakdown. Matthew Peterson here, running through all 6 selections that Denver has. Now, let me just kind of open up by saying pre-free agency mock drafts are always a bit of a crapshoot, and the entire mock draft in general is a crapshoot. But when you have no idea what the team needs are going into the draft after free agency, that's going to create a lot of volatility. So, with that being said, we can look at the Broncos 2024 draft picks. They have 6 picks right now, according to my calculations. They've got their own first. They have a 3rd round pick. They have a 4th that came over in the Bradley Chubb trade to the Dolphins. They have a 5th rounder they got from the Jets in the Jacob Martin trade. They have their own 5th round pick. And they have a 6th they got from the 49ers in the Randy Gregory trade. No 7th rounder. They traded that away for Will Lutz and to San Francisco for Randy Gregory for the 6th rounder. So those are the 6 picks I am working with in this mock draft. Now, I did this mock draft on Pro Football Focus, which it's an okay site to use for a mock draft, if I'm being honest. They haven't really updated all the team's picks in day 3 of the draft. But here's how the first 11 picks shook out. Caleb Williams went number 1 overall. No surprise. Drake May and Jaden Daniels followed him. No surprise to me. Marvin Harrison is an Arizona Cardinal. Brock Bowers went to the Chargers at number 5. Joe Alt went to the Giants. Malik Neighbors and Roma Dunze go back-to-back. Dallas Turner to the Bears at 9. And Olu Fashanu to the Jets. And then Jared Verse to the Vikings right before Denver at number 12. So, guys I would have loved to have seen at number 12, Brock Bowers, Dallas Turner. Those are 2 big needs for the Broncos and 2 quality players. But I do this mock draft thinking, what would Sean Payton do? Because ultimately, he's calling the shots, not me. And right now, I think Sean Payton at pick number 12 might go with quarterback J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. First off, let me just say, McCarthy's stock is rising fast. It's like GameStop from a few years ago. Everyone is in on J.J. McCarthy right now. Daniel Jeremiah, one of my favorite NFL draft experts, saw him go top 10 in his last mock draft. So I know it might sound crazy, and just a few months ago, it would have been asinine to propose that J.J. McCarthy could go round 1, let alone 12th overall. But last year we saw Anthony Richardson's stock really shoot up following the season, and that might be J.J. McCarthy this year. I also remember when Sean Payton hopped on the Kay Adams show, and he talked about quarterbacks, and here's what he said about drafting one. If we like one of these quarterbacks a lot, I'm unconcerned where people think we should draft them. So for everyone in the back saying J.J. McCarthy at number 12 is way too early, Sean Payton is flipping you the bird right now because he does not care. And if he falls in love with J.J. McCarthy, he may very well pull the trigger on that, knowing he can't get him in round 2 without having a 2nd-round pick. So let's get familiar with the Michigan man. He's 6'3", 202 pounds. The pro I have for him is flashes of precision accuracy. He's able to layer balls between the linebackers and the DBs. He's got great velocity on his passes as well, great arm strength, and he's very smart with the football. Only 9 interceptions in 2 years combined as a starter in Ann Arbor. Now, the con I have for JJ, we do not have a lot of film to work with when it comes to downfield passes. They did not ask him to do a lot of downfield passes during Michigan. At Michigan, they were able to run the football very effectively. So if you're looking for a boatload of film to see can J.J. McCarthy make all the throws down the sideline, 20-plus yards, you only have like 40 passes to work with last year, and that's not an exaggeration. So that is definitely a knock when it comes to figuring out whether or not J.J. can make big league throws after not seeing a whole lot of them at Michigan. Now, during his 2 years as a starter for the Wolverines, he was a winner. I mean, there's no denying it, right? He went 13-1 in 2022 and then a perfect 15-0 this past season. And GMs and head coaches, they like that trait. I know that there is more to just a quarterback when it comes to winning, but they like a quarterback that just knows one thing and one thing only, and that's winning football. Because you often see quarterbacks who are good but on winning teams go earlier in the draft. So let me know, do you want to draft J.J. McCarthy? Just at its core, yes or no? Personally, I think pick number 12 is too early for J.J. McCarthy. I think there is a quarterback every year that benefits from a long gap being between the end of the season and the draft. And that long gap causes people to get bored. And to fix that boredom, to cure it, they start stirring the pot a little bit. And I think J.J. McCarthy is a beneficiary of that right now. And if the draft was in January or February, I don't think he'd go number 12. But now we're seeing his stock rise, and we know the Broncos are looking for a quarterback. Moving on to my second pick for the Broncos. It comes in round 3. I'm going to go with Alabama's edge rusher, Chris Braswell, 76 overall. So let's get to know the ultimate freak, I would say, coming out of Tuscaloosa. He's 6'3", 255 pounds, so pretty good size altogether for an edge rusher. Now, like I said, he is a complete freak. He squatted 705 pounds and had a 38.5-inch vertical jump. I know those are just big numbers, and it's tough to put them into perspective, but that landed him on the ultimate freaks list going into the 2023 college football season. He's got the traits. The only thing he didn't have a ton of at Tuscaloosa last year was the production. In his career, just 11 sacks for the Crimson Tide. So there are always great athletes that come out of college football, but we're not looking for great athletes. We're looking for great football players. So it'll be up to this coaching staff to turn Chris Braswell into an all-time athlete to a great football player for Denver. Last year for the Crimson Tide, he had 42 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. So that lack of production is causing him to slide from maybe day 1 of the draft into day 2 and into round 3. There's a good chance he could go in round 2, but in this mock draft, he was there in round 3, and I couldn't pass up on the traits for round 3. Especially when you look at Denver's front 5, they've got good edge rushers. And I know I'm a broken record because I said this all off season long, but that's what they are. Good. Not great, not special, not building blocks, not cornerstone pieces. Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, and Nick Bonito are good edge rushers, but you can definitely improve. And in round 3, I think Denver might be thinking, we're in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. We have to get after the quarterback. So let's add to our edge rusher rotation with Chris Braswell. Teams are always looking to replenish at edge. Doesn't matter what their needs are going into free agency or the draft. They are always looking to get better at the edge rusher spot because it is, frankly, the second most important position after quarterback. If you don't have a great quarterback, you got to find a way to stop the other team's great quarterback. Now, before we get on to the rest of my mock draft, if you are looking for more Broncos mock drafts, let me know by subscribing to the channel. If we can pick up 20 more subscribers off of today's video, I'll do another mock draft after the combine. But I do want to give you guys what you are looking for, so subscribe to the channel if you are looking for more draft content. Let's move on to my third selection for Denver. It comes in round 4, and it is the Notre Dame cornerback Cam Hart at pick 122 overall. So let's get familiar with Cam Hart, because I don't think he's a household name across the country. 6'2", 200 pounds. I'll stop right there and say that is excellent size for a corner. Teams tend to drool over quarterback hand size, and honestly, it's a bit of a joke how in the weeds we can get with measurements. But when it comes to corners, I have said for a long time, this is not a spot to sleep on. If a corner is 6 foot for 6'2", that is the difference between a pass breakup to win a game or getting mossed to lose a game. Every inch matters when it comes to corners. That's what she said. Now, pros I've got for Cam Hart. He shows versatility in man and zone coverage. And right now, Denver with Vance Joseph going into their second year with him at DC, they are looking for guys that can be a little bit flexible. And Cam Hart can definitely do that. The con for Cam Hart is he tends to face guard too long, meaning he's the guy that looks at the wide receiver, doesn't turn back to the corner, or turn back to the quarterback, and then he gets flagged for defensive pass interference because he ran over the wide receiver. But hopefully with good coaching, they can get that knack out of him. Last year for the Fighting Irish, he had 21 tackles, 4 pass breakups, no interceptions, but he did have 3 forced fumbles. So he has a knack for getting the football out of receiver and running back's hands. So that was my third selection for the Broncos. And when you look at Denver's cornerback room, it is an open competition right now for a starting cornerback role. Fabian Moreau is a free agent. I don't think Denver's going to bring him back. You've got Damari Mathis, who was the original starter, and he got benched. Riley Moss will be entering his second year competing for that role. So why not toss an extra man into the mix and let the best rise to the top and get the best possible starter out of the bunch? Let's move on to my fourth selection for the Broncos. It comes in round 5 with Isaiah Williams, wide receiver out of Illinois. Now, I know that wide receiver might not scream like a big need, but keep in mind Denver could move on from Courtland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, and especially Tim Patrick. But I just love Isaiah Williams as a player. Like when we're talking day 3, I'm looking for guys. I'm looking for dudes. I'm looking for players I think have a real chance of making an NFL roster. And Isaiah Williams, the 2023 All Big Ten first team wide receiver, played 5 seasons at Illinois, so has loads of experience. He is not someone that's going to come into camp learning the position on the fly, and he makes his money over the middle of the field. And I think that is something that would complement Courtland Sutton very nicely. He was a really good ex-boundary receiver, and if they don't see Jerry Jeudy being long-term, Isaiah Williams could be a replacement in that spot, right? I think Isaiah Williams, though, is just an awesome receiver. He was doing some great stuff at Illinois. We can throw up his stats, by the way, from his final season in college, and you guys can see why he went 2023 All Big Ten first team at wide receiver, because he had some great games for the Fighting Illini. 82 grabs, over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. Illinois is not QBU. They are not pumping out great quarterbacks. So when you can put up these numbers, you're doing something right as a wide receiver. Now, like I said earlier, when we get to day 3 of the draft, I don't really care about what Denver's needs are too much. I am looking for the best player on the board because your needs in 2024 could drastically change by 2025. And imagine passing on a player you think is going to be very special because you need a safety. No, go get good players in day 3 of the draft. Moving on to the next 5th round selection, just 2 spots later, I've got the Clemson defensive tackle Tyler Davis. So let's get to know Tyler Davis a little bit here. He's 6'2", 300 pounds. Now the pro I have for him is he is difficult to displace one-on-one, and he's got great quickness off the snap, which if you're going to be a right around 300 defensive tackle, you've got to show some quickness and speed because 300 pounds, those aren't your typical nose tackle, tree stump, right in the middle of the defensive line kind of players. You've got to have an extra ability to kick it into a higher gear and get after the quarterback or take a running back down for a loss. Now, the con for Tyler Davis and the reason why he's even available in round 5 after being one of the ACC's best defensive players last year, he had a rough injury stretch from 2020 to 2022. He was a 5-year player at Clemson, and through those 5 years, he battled a lot of injuries. But last year for the Tigers, 34 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, and half a sack. If Tyler Davis doesn't run into injury after injury after injury for 3 seasons with Dabo Swinney, he's probably going earlier into the draft. I mean, in terms of the year he enters, not waiting until 2024, and then he's probably just literally going earlier in the draft. And when we look at Denver's defensive line, they got to replace Jonathan Harris. They could be moving on from DJ Jones. Mike Purcell is a free agent. DJ Jones, Jonathan Harris, and Mike Purcell made up a majority of your interior defensive line rotation, and there's a chance all 3 could be gone. So whether they hold on to 1, 2 of those guys, you got to add some more reinforcements at that spot, add some more depth, and Tyler Davis would be a great best player available type of pick and a pick for need, so killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, what is your biggest need for Denver after quarterback? I don't know if I'm the only one who's giving defensive line this much attention, but it needs this much attention. They could not stop a nosebleed last year, let alone an NFL running back. They have got to beef up the interior defensive line either through free agency or the draft. Moving on to our 6th and final pick for the Broncos in 2024, I go running back out of Alabama, Jace McLendon. Now, let's talk about the pick here, and then we'll talk about the running back room in a moment. First off, he's 5'11", 212 pounds. He was a 4-star recruit to Alabama. Saw some limited action early on in his career in Tuscaloosa, and then he became their feature running back this past season. Now, he's a patient back that does not shy away from contact, and I think that's something that Sean Payton loves to see, right? We know Sean Payton had a great thing with Mark Ingram, another Alabama running back during his time in New Orleans, and Mark Ingram was definitely not afraid to make and initiate contact with defenders. Now, the con I've got for McClellan, he lacks that top-end breakaway speed. That's why he's not going earlier in the draft. There's a good chance that he gets caught from behind if he's able to get free into the second level, but for the Broncos team that lacked explosive plays last year, let's focus on just getting to that second level before we talk about getting caught from behind. Last year for the Crimson Tide, though, he had 108 carries, 890 yards, 4.9 yards a pop, and 8 touchdowns to go along with it. Now, Denver's running back room doesn't necessarily need an addition, but unfortunately, Javonte Williams, that knee injury, I think it definitely showed during stretches of 2023, and Denver may not be sold on him being a bell cow back. Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin, they showed some great moments. Highlight reel Jaleel was awesome at stretches, but I don't think he's capable of being a 3-down back, and not that Jace McLendon necessarily is, but I think this running back room should not be set in stone. I think there should be some competition added to it. All right, that will do it for us on our mock draft today. Appreciate you tuning in. But first, I do want to get your opinion as we run through the mock draft selections here. So let's recap the mock draft picks that I made today, going all the way back to round number 1. With the first round pick at number 12, I went J.J. McCarthy. Would I do this? No, I would not. But I'm doing a mock draft based on what I think Sean Payton will do. Then I went Alabama edge rusher Chris Braswell in round 3, Notre Dame cornerback Cam Hart in round 4, Illinois wide receiver Isaiah Williams in round 5, followed by Tyler Davis, defensive tackle out of Clemson, and then I wrapped up the mock draft with a 6th-round pick of Jace McLendon. So grade my mock draft. Give me your worst. I know people always get super fired up about mock drafts pre-free agency, when we don't even know what Denver's needs will be by the time the draft rolls around. But give me your best grade, A, B, C, D, or F down below. Once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come tune in to this edition of the Broncos Breakdown. We will sign off, and we will catch up with you later.